Tuesday morning, my friends. I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on this terrific Tuesday. You know why it's terrific? It's terrific because we get to be together this morning. It's terrific because we've got our college and career small group meeting tonight, 5:30. Going to have some chili, going to do some discipleship, so it's going to be great. But right now, I want you to join me in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 as Paul gives us a principle. He says, live as you are called. Let God call you into that relationship. Let God move you in the direction you need to go, and trust Him to take care of things. Look at what he says. Only let each person lead the life that the Lord has assigned to him and to which God has called him. This is my rule in all the churches. Remember what we talked about yesterday? If you've got a couple and all of a sudden one of them becomes a Christian and the other one is not a Christian, Paul says you don't have to leave that marriage relationship, even though the principle is that we should not be unequally yoked. Believers and non-believers should not be unequally yoked in a marriage relationship or any kind of relationship. He says, understand that if you get saved and one spouse is saved and the other is not, don't seek to leave. If the unbelieving spouse chooses to leave, let them leave. But he says, when you come into that relationship with Christ, understand He knew where you were. He knew what you were doing. He knew what was going on. And He'll take care of all of the details of making the changes that need to be changed. Now, he gives us an illustration. Was anyone at the time of his call already circumcised? Let him not seek to remove the marks of circumcision. Was anyone at the time of his call uncircumcised? Let him not seek circumcision. Now, here's what he's talking about here. For Jewish people, circumcision was a big deal. It was a sign of the covenant. Now, Paul has taught over and over again in all of his churches that circumcision isn't what saves you, okay? It's an outward symbol of a relationship with God for the Jewish people. He says, but it doesn't do anything for you. So he says, don't go out and seek to be circumcised if you're not circumcised. But also, don't seek to become uncircumcised, which is impossible. But what he's talking about here is don't go to great lengths to do something that doesn't matter. He says neither circumcision counts for anything nor uncircumcision. You know what matters? Keeping the commandments of God. Now, a lot of people say, well, isn't that legalism, Pastor? No, it's not, because we are called to be obedient to the Father. He's given us commands that we are supposed to do. Now, Jesus said, I can sum up the commandments for you in two things. Love God supremely and love your neighbor sacrificially. I mean, you do that and everything else falls into place. But we've got to do what God has commanded us to do, to go into the world and make disciples, to be holy as He is holy. That's what matters, not whether you're married or unmarried, not whether you're circumcised or uncircumcised. And Paul says, verse 20, each one should remain in the condition in which he was called. What does that mean? Well, were you a bondservant when called? Do not be concerned about it. But if you can gain your freedom, avail yourself for the opportunity. In other words, if you become a Christian and you're a bondservant, a slave, he says, don't think that just because of that you need to become not a bondservant. You don't run away from your master. Now, if you can pay for your freedom, then do that, he says. That will be beneficial. But understand, just because you become a Christian doesn't mean that you need to leave your master and to run away from him. He says, for he who is called in the Lord as a bondservant is a freedman of the Lord. Even as a slave in Jesus Christ, you've been set free. You've been set free. Now, you ought to do the work of the bondservant, but you have been set free by Jesus. Likewise, he who was free when called is a bondservant of Christ. When we come to know Jesus, we surrender our lives to Him and we become a bondservant to Him. Now, understand the principle here. When we come to know Jesus as Savior and Lord, He's going to do what needs to be done to change us from the inside out. Why? Verse 23, you were bought with a price. Do not become bondservants of men. Jesus paid the price to draw us into that relationship with the Father. So we should not, for any reason, decide that we're going to be obliged to another man, another woman, a human being. All right? We're not supposed to sell ourselves into slavery and get ourselves involved in things that we shouldn't be, because God has called us into this relationship, and He's going to do an amazing work in us and through us. Now think about that. Listen to what He says as He finishes this up. So, brothers, in whatever condition each was called, there let him remain with God. Be blessed. I'll see you back here tomorrow.